Thank you, Mr. Foster. Now, we heard about analytics and accelerating transformation, right? And our next session dives deeper into this aspect. But before that, let me remind you that our enterprise experts are looking forward to speaking with you and help you plan your enterprise transformation to the next. And you can drop by our virtual stalls to meet them. We also have some great giveaways for filling up the feedback forms, so you could drop by there through these sessions. But coming back to our transformation agenda, we have GS Govindaraj, the head of operational excellence at JK Paper, and Veeresh Dharappanavar, the sales head for manufacturing at Wurth IT India, helping us look at analytics as the catalyst for operational excellence agility. And Nikita Jadal, the marketing lead at Wurth IT India, is leading this discussion. Take it away, Nikita.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you so much for that. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our very, very special insights session Analytics, the catalyst for operational excellence agility. As you all know, manufacturing is an ever evolving industry on the cusp of transformation every now and then. The uncertainty of the pandemic has accelerated the need for having solutions that can help smoothen the entire digital transformation journey for organizations. Companies have to opt for a solution that can enable them to overcome these barriers and elevate from not just achieving operational efficiency, but operational excellence. I think with that, it's time to bring in the experts who can tell us more on how analytics can become the medium through which these organizations can achieve their operational excellence goals. Welcome, Mr. Govindaraj, and welcome, Mr. Veeresh. We're very happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Nikita.
Great. Without further delay, I would like to start with you, Veeresh. So, Mr. Veeresh, considering the current pandemic situation, can you help us understand as to how it has affected the growth of the industry and the overall performance of the industry?
Yeah, thank you. It's a topic that most of us discuss, but there are two sides of the coin over here. Although pandemic has impacted a lot of industries, but it has also given opportunities for a few, namely healthcare. We all know healthcare is thriving. Education, of course, no, there have been a lot of acquisitions that we learn about on the education perspective because online. Education has come up in a very good way. Contactless payments, a few of us were not on contactless payments and they moved towards the contactless payments, e-commerce, food services. These are the sectors that we feel that have impacted the pandemic. And the other element on the manufacturing perspective as well. Many organizations were implementing automation, much more were talking about automation, but they have started implementing the automation as a strategy. 3D printing, although that does not apply to the mass manufacturing, or but at least for those who have precision components, they are trying to move towards the 3D printing. If I could look at other industries, right? I would differentiate them into two elements: discrete and batch, and process. If I talk about discrete and batch manufacturing, they were impacted the most, considering the demand as well, automotive segment, and also they relied upon just-in-time manufacturing concept. So in this scenario, they depended on the components which were coming in from multiple geographies, etc. But right now, as a strategy to fulfill their just-in-time manufacturing initiatives, they are looking at localization of the parts. And of course, the process industry, as Mr. Govindaraj comes from JK Paper, some of the insights that we have collected is there was a surge in demand for the pulp and paper industry during the pandemic, and that created a global growth of compound annual growth rate of about 0.8% globally. But in the Indian pulp and paper industry is growing at a 7.8% CAGR, considering the till 2024 as a year. That is statistics about the pulp and paper industry. There is also complementing demand for pulp and paper with respect to the e-commerce, right? In China, Brazil, India, e-commerce adoption has been more. So that will again push the demand for the pulp and paper industry moving forward. Another interesting aspect which came as part of the policy was the US $1 trillion bill for the infrastructure sector. So it will give immense potential for the bridges and the roads. So considering this, there will be surge in demand for the cement industry, especially in the US, Canada, and the South American region. And US based cement companies are gearing up to meet those demands in the future. Yeah, but these are the elements. But the one aspect that will keep everyone together would be the operational and the manufacturing excellence. This will not only help them bring back those efficiencies, but also bring the profitabilities, which is a key element for the operational excellence.
Great. I mean, a lot of these insights help us understand how different industries were affected during the pandemic. You talked about the paper and pulp industry. I would like to go to Mr. Govindaraj on this. Sir, could you help us understand what kind of challenges did JK Paper faced, and what were your operational excellence goals?
Yeah, like in any industry, the operation excellence at JK concentrate on three key important areas. How do we create a cost competitiveness in terms of our product and services, what we deliver to the customer? How do we inculcate the culture of continual improvement in the minds of the people, and therefore we reap the benefit of continuing this as a improvement ongoing initiative? And third, how do we create or engineer to produce the high quality product at lower cost? I mean, these are the three dimensional views at which the operation excellence initiatives at JK are aligned with. Just to align in our to vision of our organization, if we talk about it, to be a dynamic benchmark and leader in the Indian paper industry is the vision of the organization. All our initiatives under operation excellence are aligned towards achieving the vision. And if you talk about the holistic view of operation excellence, it starts from end to end, starting from the raw material procurement stage to delivering the value to the customer. So if we understand the cost competitiveness is one of the key differentiator in any industry, and therefore that in particular to paper at JK as well. So we are having so many initiatives around how do we create much more value for our customers at the various price points to satisfy the need of the customers.
Right. You talked about the three-dimensional challenges that you are facing. What other initiatives are you undertaking in JK to address these problems that you're facing?
Yeah, see, in JK paper, we are operating at three different locations. So we do have the initiatives running successfully in one location, and also getting cross-pollinated in a different location through cross-functional benchmarking, and then trying to take the initiatives at a larger scale, including forming teams across the units. And then we also use tools like Lean, as well as for some of the projects we do undergo the methodology of Six Sigma, and trying to bring some amount of the focused efforts in bringing the cost down on each and every product line at various mills. While I say so, we also have embarked on our digital transformation journey in the recent past with a partner, and the partner is trying to help us with creating a roadmap for making this JK Paper as a company digitally sound, and then trying to bring the value in decision making and bringing the sound operational decisions with the help of our informed decisions coming out of the data analytics. And therefore, we are looking forward to see many more. We are already seeing the early success of certain initiatives in this direction the last 6 months. We're also looking forward to a big way of getting the complete bottom line improvement in the next 2 years to come.
Great, that is very, very impressive. And I'm sure with different locations, different plants, different processes that are involved into the entire function, I believe there's a lot of data involved. And definitely data is your major feeder for analytics as a tool. What would you tell us? Could you tell us more about this data landscape that is available at your end?
Yeah, at present, the aging of these mills, if we talk about, say, close to, say, 50 plus years, it means that essentially there are certain old systems running in isolations. There are some systems which got recently commissioned, say, as early as about, say, a decade back. And therefore, we are able to see a classic distinctive pieces of information availability. Independent systems and integrated systems and integrated even with the ERP, like we recently integrated with our operations with SAP. We also have an edge management system at different locations, and we see the landscape of data availability in multiple formats, from our local control to SCADA to the integrated the operation center, the central control room, etc. So while we see the improvement of one area will have a bearing of the other area input, and therefore we also strongly felt the need of getting the data into a common data lake, a common pool, wherein we can leverage the individual the key characteristics of various improvement indicators. How do we take those inputs into a common platform wherein we can run through certain analytics and try to improve the process efficiencies? We are in that particular path. We are shortly going to have a common data lake for our entire JK paper limited, and therefore we are able to see the visibility of the various process data in a singular platform.
Right. And to just continue on the same line of thought, I would like to go to Mr. Veeresh. Sir, Mr. Govindaraj mentioned about having this data lake present. What do you think would be the constructive next steps that one can take with this data lake that is available?
I think partially Mr. Govindaraj has addressed the scenario of bringing the data lake. Again, building on to the narration of Mr. Govindaraj, see, there are multiple plants within JK Paper, and that is synonymous with many, many organizations who have multiple locations, multiple geographies. If you could take the case of the non-process industry, with discrete or batch processes, they would possibly have in multiple continents. So what we see in a particular setup or a manufacturing plant, the data is lying in a discrete format, as mentioned by Mr. Govindaraj. It can be in your control systems, it can be in your quality systems, it can be in your ERP systems, and again, the legacy factor comes into picture where we are talking about 50-plus-year-old mills. So here there is a need for us to build a data lake, which will act as a one point of source, getting together the data from different silos, basically. And this particular source can create channels for innovative tools or reporting systems or custom developed systems like predictive algorithms, etc., to provide branches of data to provide value. So yes, I agree there is a need for data lake, and it is good that the manufacturing organizations are really talking about the data lake, which 4 years ago was more talked about in a financial domain, as an example. Yes, there is a need for a data lake, and then the proper utilization of this data lake is another imperative for us.
Right, absolutely. Mr. Govindaraj, you talked about doing these initiatives at an organization level, but I believe you will have to go section wise, right? So,
Right.
what are these different sections where you feel analytics can contribute significantly?
In the pulp and paper industry as such, we could able to see a lot of scope in each and every process in the entire value chain, starting from the raw material planning and plantation and research and development. We see scope for the analytics, starting from understanding the aging of the planted material. When it comes to tracking down its growth, and then bringing the right quality material for the mills, so the entire logistic supply chain. And then if we talk about the pulp mill recovery and the utility areas, there are umpteen number of use cases we could able to see in these applications. Similarly, when we talk about the production planning and scheduling process, as an industry practice, people have started using the trim optimization solution, which is unique in the pulp and paper industry or any thin film industry or textile industry. While we see the integrated approach is still is being missed in some of the leading partners, we are also trying to see how do we address that gap in having the integrated planning and scheduling along with optimization. So likewise, we also see there are areas wherein the stock preparation area we see a value in having the analytics helping us in reducing the capabilities of building the web break prediction, for example. So wherein we could able to see the help of parameters in the stock preparation as well as machine conditions, trying to see how do we predict the web breaks which can be avoided, and therefore we try to see the continuity in the machines, keeping the machine available for more hours to work. So there are areas we already experienced some of the improvements seen. In addition to that, as a the asset intensive industry, the predictive maintenance is another area wherein we could able to see a large area. We can see there's a scope for improvement in condition monitoring. Continuously, we're getting the feedback about the health of the machines, and then trying to see predict the future failures in case of any, and then help the decision makers to and give the signals to the maintenance crew for any redressal of issues. And similarly, we also see there's a scope for energy monitoring and trying to. This particular industry as such, it's an energy intensive industry as well. So having this analytic approach, not only for the process related monitoring, but also the environmental condition monitoring also is another area, evolving area in the analytics space, where we could able to see some early improvements.
Right.
So end to end, you are seeing the value of having analytics.
It is very interesting to know that there are so many different sections that have to work in tandem, so that the entire organization functions without any hurdles. uh, you've told us as to how analytics can help each of these sections, but I would like to go to Mr. Veeresh now. Sir, can you tell us some gaps maybe that you have experienced with analytics?
Yeah. Okay. So let me talk about what I have learned so far. With respect to building the digital transformation initiative, so it always started with the Industry 4.0, which started getting coined in the year 2010, and thanks to the government of Germany, in 2011 they formally created a document which talks about the framework of Industry 4.0. That was immediately picked up by Germany, and then it spread across the Europe, and it also kind of overlapped with India as a geography as well. And I also saw that US was a bit slow by two years in adopting these elements. especially the industry 4.0 started taking off in the discrete and automotive segment because largely being German industry specific to automotive and automotive ancillary plus discrete. So here, they were trying to, for the first 4 or 5 years, they were trying to figure out what is it that we need to do. And once they looked at what they can do, the next question that they wanted to look at was addressing the business value that or business benefit that brings to the table. And parallelly, if I could look at the process industry, whereas the discrete and the automotive ancillary, they were trying to solve their data problem, but the process industry always had the data with them, right? They solved this problem 2 decades ago, and they were actually looking at what is it that they can do with the existing data sets. So there came a lot of tools. There came a lot of IoT platforms to say which we could get the data and try to solve the problems. But all these initiatives where I felt that we're looking at challenge identification or issue identification and diagnosis. They kind of restricted towards that. But the gap that I felt was what is it that can go forward to an operations team with respect to recommendations was the biggest gap that I could see over a period of time, considering my experience on Industry 4.0 starting 2011 kind of time frame.
Right. Technology being able to recommend you the solution to the problems that are identified, it's incredible. Absolutely. You talked about data being the main force behind analytics. So I would just pivot to Mr. Govindaraj. So, what do you think are the components that are needed for a data driven operational excellence initiative?
We see there are common 4 elements which are very important for any successful operational excellence initiatives, the data-driven initiatives in the organization. We can see the first one is of the leadership. The leadership level commitment towards such initiative. For example, at JK, we are running with a program called LEAD, or the Lead, Empower, Accelerate Performance as an initiative, which is running in the organization for the last 9-10 months. The basic objective is to bring a data-centric culture building, and that starts with the leadership. So that's the first and prime important element I will touch upon. The second is taking this data analytics as a business strategy. Not only it brings the competitive advantages, but how do we utilize the value of the tools in generating excellence in the operations? So in a way, all our business processes are how are we currently managing, and with the help of different analytic tools, how are we able to think differently, take informed decisions. The third dimension is actually building a organization competence of understanding the data analysis, and then put into use. So currently we may be having a partner, maybe after a year or two, what next? So we need to also build a culture of and competency in the system, and therefore we also focus on heavily on having the people on board for these initiatives, and then trying to encourage them to pursue certain data-centric programs through IT, and therefore we are building the internal competence as well. The fourth element is, of course, the implementation of the analytics with the initial partner support, and then taking from there on with our independent leader and in the organization. So we see every level in the organization had to contribute in this particular initiative. When we say that the leadership is the first level of competence in this, the component which are needed for the data-driven operation excellence. Well, we also need to understand the bottom level people need to get the buy-in as well. So therefore, the communication between to and fro, and then trying to take the input from the bottom line, the real working team in the shop floor, and then how do we get their inputs also into consideration for building a successful business strategy of taking the analytic driven approach in the organization is the key. So I summarize with these 4 elements. To repeat, the leadership, taking the data analytics as the business strategy, and build the organization competency, and then take the people along and make them be a part of the change. Therefore, we make the successful implementation of such enterprise level operational excellence initiatives through the data centric approach.
It is, to be honest, very, very impressive to know that it has to, any initiative in order to be successful has to come from top down, and it is very impressive to know that people are such an integral part of it. Mr. Veeresh, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I definitely concur with in our past experience. We have seen that the success has always been coming from the top down.
Yeah.
Of course, we have seen organizations which have done initiatives from the top down, but at the ground level or the local level, the leadership, and ownership. Let me put it this way: if it was missing, then no, nothing was a success over there, because anyone working on these initiatives part time may not be helpful at the local level to be successful. Yeah, I concur to all these initiatives that Mr. Govindaraj said. Top down, having local leadership, building competency, and the culture element does fit in to bring a lot of success. And answering your question, Nikita, on building on the gaps that I mentioned, right? So again, talking about various industries, automotive and discrete to begin with, they always looked at what are the key business problems that they could solve. It revolved around their operations being, overall equipment effectiveness was something that they looked at, and they were doing OEE for a long period of time, but it was not realistic because the data coming in was manual, as an example. Since the machines and the systems started talking to them directly, they started correcting those OE numbers, that whatever they had, and a marginal improvement in that also created a lot of business benefit for them. And for the process industry, building on Mr. Govindraj's mention about energy consumption reduction, etc. We see that for the process industry, there are multiple tangible benefits that can be measured by utilizing analytics. That would be specific heat, specific steam, specific energy. These are some of the keywords that they would look at, because we see that most of the organizations are implementing the ISO 50001 initiatives, and the energy reduction, making an impact to the environment by reducing the emissions, are key aspects, right? Less dependency on fossil fuel, as an example. Coal, coke, gas is another element. But coming back to the data-driven analytics, right? The gap here also plays an important role. We need to bridge the gap where we need to get out of the issue identification versus the diagnosis towards recommendations. Although analytical tools, to some extent, they are able to do that, but to complement these analytical tools, the technology-driven organizations need to have a subject matter expert element as well over here. People who actually come from these industries, people who can understand the language of the operations team, talk to them in the same language by convincing them. And that will be an amalgamation of a technology which brings those recommendations and the subject matter expertise who can take that recommendations, work with the operations teams, and then get those successes done. So I think this would be the gap. Technology giving you recommendations, not restricting themselves to diagnosis, and an element of subject matter expertise. Yeah, should bring success.
Yeah.
I think you've, yes, please go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr. Govindaraj.
absolutely, Mr. Veeresh, you nailed it. when we look at the business problems, unless we have the right solution, not only fixing that at the first moment, but also to the problem not to occur. We are kind of preventing kind of a solution. That comes definitely with the functional knowledge, and then rightly said, the problems in the industry need to get addressed with the right set of tools as well as the expertise or the functional expertise, and therefore we get a real benefit of having such tools. And we also see there is we are not only reducing losses for the organization, but also in a larger context at the industry as a whole or a nation as a whole, if any loss being avoided is being saved for the country as well. So in this note, I strongly believe the business gaps, whatever the problems, whatever the industry faces, need to be very much possible to solve through using this analytic approach with the right subject matter experts help.
Thank you, Mr.
I think both of you have summarized it almost very, very effectively. It was a very interesting session indeed, but to understand the gigantic data lake that is available within organizations, and like Mr. Veeresh said, to have a tool that a unit that provides a unified platform which will help organization come up with solutions that are cost effective, that help them achieve operational excellence. It's just incredible to understand that it has gone to the level of not just assessing the problem, but like you said, giving out recommendations as to how you can solve those problems. And just like Mr. Govindaraj said, every initiative has to be from the top down. It builds that culture within the employees to not just form a vision but probably achieve it effectively. So thank you for being with us here today. We've indeed I believe our audience had a lot of takeaways from today's discussions. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
And thank you
Thank
everybody
you
for your
for
time.
inviting me
Thank
for
you,
this
everyone.
wonderful session.